Good morning, friends. It's Jen Taub, and I want to know, are you ready for hot commie summer? Yes, my friends, we have now reached the epitome of crazy town has taken over life because Wall Street is so freaked out about Mamdani securing the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York that apparently they're holding, like yesterday afternoon there was some special meeting of the billionaires, some special maybe Zoom or phone call where they tried to strategize what they could do to stop Mamdani from being elected. And the freak out took many forms. Literally, we are hearing, I mean, they're just telegraphing their plans, but we're hearing that there actually is an effort to try to get Donald Trump to deport him. Yes. So let me just start this, and I've got videos too. Let me start. As you know, Zohan Mamdani won the Democratic nomination, or is likely to have secured the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York. The only thing holding up is us actually saying he's won is the count that will happen next week. But he's declared that he is the winner, and even Cuomo has conceded to him. The numbers are such that there's no way he didn't. He has more votes than Cuomo secured. And when the next round is counted, it's clear that he will have over a majority. So I want to share with you now what's going on, right? It was so heartwarming to hear Mamdani on Tuesday night quote Nelson Mandela. It is always seems impossible until it's done. My friends, it is done, and you are the ones who did it. I am honored to be your Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, but not everybody was thrilled. Daniel S. Loeb, a billionaire hedge fund manager, put this up on Twitter, or I guess they call it X now. Daniel S. Loeb said, "It's officially hot commie summer." Oh my God, dude, that sounds great. Like he thinks that's something that sounds bad. First of all, we know Zohan Mamdani is not a communist. He's a socialist. And there have been other socialist mayors of New York, even in my lifetime. And some of the best mayors of New York were socialists. LaGuardia, for example, they even named an airport after him. So good luck. But it's funny. It's funny. And now he's created a meme, hot commie summer. So you might be wondering, who the hell is Daniel S. Loeb? Why is he so threatened by Mamdani, who only wants to make living in New York affordable for everybody? Like rent control. We already have that in New York. Like cribs for families who have babies who can't afford them. Like free rides on the buses. And how does Mamdani want to pay for it? He wants to take more taxes from billionaires. And who the hell is Daniel Loeb? I mean, is the guy suffering? Like, why is he afraid of hot commie summer? And let's take a look. Daniel S. Loeb is worth $3.2 billion. This is sourced from Bloomberg. Okay, this is a photo of him from Getty Images. What else can we say? We can also say that not everybody is as short-sighted as Loeb. Let me read to you. This is really great. There are other people who were Cuomo supporters who have admitted that they didn't really like Cuomo. Not at all. They just had to pay him protection money. Let's read this now to you. This is from journalist Theodore Scheifler, and here's what he wrote. As donors try to assess their next moves in the mayoral race, one of the biggest donors to Andrew Cuomo's super PAC, the investor Mark Gorton, said he is likely to back Mamdani. That is because the support that Mamdani has gotten from Brad Lander, who Gorton said he ranked first. This is quoting Gorton. I feel like people misunderstood my $250,000 for Cuomo for real enthusiasm, Gorton said in an interview. It was basically, oh, looks like Cuomo is coming back. We don't want to be shut out. Let's try and get on his good side. That's kind of how things work with Cuomo. It's sad political pragmatism. I wish we lived in a world where those sorts of things were not useful to do. That last part is a quote, political pragmatism. So some people are facing facts that this may be the way to go. And if you have billions of dollars, maybe it's okay to allow for some shared prosperity. Maybe if playing the game, and maybe you played it better, and maybe you broke the law, and maybe you're just good at making money. If that's the case, you should redistribute it. You should be happy to pay taxes because the theory, the political philosophy around capitalism does have this idea of it's the best system for all of us. But if it's not working for all of us, taxes are designed to share that wealth. That's how this is done. And it's really funny that they think hot commie summer is going to be something we don't want. Now, I got to play for you because it's just too good. The freakouts about Mamdani right here. I'm going to share this with you from. This is pretty good. I'm going to share this with you from Fox News. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what's going on in New York right now, Congressman. And as a representative of Florida, I know you've seen the actual movement of people from New York to Florida. You've got Democrat socialist Zohan Mamdani becoming New York City's Democrat candidate for the mayoral race, beating out former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis reacting to Mamdani's win yesterday, saying, well, just when you thought Palm Beach real estate couldn't go any higher, ... this happens. Congressman, your reaction, what do you think this is going to mean?
I cannot believe that New York is about to elect Adam Sandler, the hairdresser, as mayor of one of the world's greatest cities.
Adam Sandler, the hairdresser? As mayor, I mean, okay, I kind of like the idea of comparing Adam Sandler to Zohan Mamdani, and I guess they're referring to the movie Zohan, which is something from 2008. And Zohan is a Hebrew name. I'm not entirely familiar with that. So I think we need to I think you need to see this because I wasn't until he made this apparent joke. And by the way, this only makes Mamdani cooler, like Adam Sandler. Okay, so I'm going to share that video with you real quick. Share that clip with you because I don't know about you, but it was not on my radar. So here is Zohan as the hairstylist. Let's play it. I think you get the idea. I'm sorry. Okay, so really? I mean, this is only going to help Mamdani's street cred. They're comparing him to an Israeli American Jewish guy hairdresser named Zohan. I mean, these guys have lost the plot. So what can I say? Let's talk a little bit about what is great about Mamdani. Even mainstream media, Jen Psaki had him on for his first national interview, right? And Zohan Mamdani is really good at answering questions. Jen Psaki tried to, if you watched it last night, tried to say, every part of the country might have different policy ideas that are good for them. And I'm not saying that you won because of your ideas, but wasn't it just about the way you campaigned, right? That you just campaigned better. It was only toward the end of this interview that he had to remind her that Andrew Cuomo was credibly accused of sexually assaulting many women. She was talking about him just running a bad campaign. Let's play this.
A lot of analysis, a ton, on what your success last night and in the last couple of weeks means nationally for the Democratic Party. Unquestionably, it means something about how people campaign. But what do you think it means?
I think it is part of a larger referendum on where our party goes. And I think one of the hopes that we had from the very beginning of this campaign was to move our political instinct from lecturing to listening. You know, at the national level, after the presidential election, we saw that New York was actually the state with the largest swing in the country towards Donald Trump, 11.5 points, and that swing took place far from the caricature of Trump voters, instead taking place in the hearts of immigrant New York City. And I went to those neighborhoods. I went to Fordham Road in the Bronx and Hillside Avenue in Queens, and I asked those New Yorkers, the vast majority of whom were Democrats, why they voted for Trump and what it would take to bring them back to the Democratic Party. And again, what I heard from them was cost of living, was an inability to afford the very things they recalled being able to purchase 4 years ago. And when they told me what it would take, they said again and again a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And ultimately, in listening to them, we built a campaign that was explicitly about making this city affordable. And I think too often in politics, there's a desire to impose what you think the debate is upon the people that you're seeking to represent, as opposed to listening to the very issues that are making it difficult for them to keep calling the city that they love the city that they live in.
Brilliant. It's as simple as that. Listening, not lecturing. And I think what I hear from him makes sense. It doesn't help when Democrats keep saying, how's that price of eggs? And mock Donald Trump for having been focused on inflation and prices. I'm not criticizing Joe Biden here. That is not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is listening, responding, coming up with solutions. And what the Democratic Party needs to do is really be the party of workers, the party of the 99%. And I see Mamdani having the skills to communicate that and being a 33-year-old. This does matter. Now, some folks are concerned that when I say this next generation should lead, that I'm being ageist. Far from it. What I am saying is that just like parents raise children and grandchildren, we people who I'm now in my 50s, it's time to start. And I feel like this as a teacher. You train people, whether it's in law or you train them in having good manners, or you find ways to pass on knowledge. But when it comes to leading, setting the policies in motion, it takes years and decades to do that. I find it the height of arrogance for people who are in their 80s who only are going to spend, I don't know, another 5 or 10 years on this planet, to not find ways to help people who are in their 30s, who have 50 more years, set the agenda. And I've heard a million times people saying, well, you know, you don't need someone young to set the agenda for young people. And plus, people who have more experience can effectuate things. So then be behind the scenes effectuating things. Do you think movies get made by the stars on the screen? Do we think actors write the lines that they say? And even people in politics who are sui generis, who are phenomenons like AOC, or in this case, Mamdani. Yes, they have ideas, but they're also relying on people to help them craft their campaign. And I'm going to give one last comment on him. And then I have one more thing about Mamdani. I don't know if you're aware, but I only found out this recently. His mother is a famous filmmaker. She made some wonderful Hollywood films, or independent films as well. I remember Salam Bombay. Absolutely loved that, and some more modern ones. So you can look her up. But the point is, his father is a professor. So obviously raised in a family where ideas and concepts and framing and art were discussed. And I wonder if, whether it's his mother or his influence from being around that, he understands how to stage manage a campaign. And that matters too. But the bottom line is no amount of stage management, no amount of costuming can provide people with authenticity. He is who he is, and he went out and listened, and he's speaking to the issues that matter to people. Okay, so is it hot commie summer? Well, maybe for Democrats it will be, but guess what? It turns out that Donald Trump is trying to ruin the July 4th recess for Congress. Yes, he is demanding that lawmakers who would normally be going home today, I think, for the holiday, a long holiday weekend, because it is June 26th, they would be taking maybe this whole coming week off, because next Friday is July 4th. They can't go home. They can't have a recess. This is what Mike Johnson is, until they cram through the awful, no good, oppressive, massively flawed, and I don't know, selfish, big, ugly bill. That is what Donald Trump is demanding. And so I want to remind you and share with you just how bad this bill is. So I'm going to share with you, Abigail Spanberger was speaking to the lies about this bill. And the reason why I'm sharing this is the more we know and the more we talk about it, the more people will hate it, and it will be harder to get it enacted. Let's play this.
Know it. They're flat out lying when they say they're just kicking undocumented immigrants off Medicaid because those folks were never eligible for Medicaid in the first place. The truth is, Republicans know that kicking millions of Americans off health insurance is unpopular. They know that ripping food assistance from veterans who've served our country and young people in foster care or facing homelessness is unconscionable. If our budgets show our values, Republicans are showing that they're okay to have a sicker, poorer, crueler America in order to justify tax cuts for their billionaire buddies and pile trillions onto the national debt. House and Senate Democrats are united to stop this big, ugly bill because it's bad for American families and it's bad for America.
How hard it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this bill is bad for America, and it's nice to hear Abigail Spanberger say that. But what really speaks to me is hearing from people who will be suffering, people who depend on Medicaid. We've looked at that chart. There is this lie. And I wish, love her for what she said, but I want more energy from our representatives. And they want to say, here's the first lie. Here's the second lie. They need to be more passionate. So here's the first lie. One of the first lies is that people who depend on Medicaid are just sitting around, eating bonbons, shooting basketballs, watching, watching YouTube. Let's talk about who these real people are who will suffer. I'm going to share this video now.
I am also dependent on Medicaid.
This is Jessica Ballmer.
I don't make enough as a home care worker to pay for my own medical care, and I'm currently fighting cancer. So I don't know how many of you guys have seen a chemotherapy bill. They're not cheap. They're not my favorite thing to receive in the mail. I'd much rather get a gift card. I got to the point, I think it was 2023, that I was having to choose between my rent and my chemo every month, as well as also like my medications, other utilities, normal things that normal people have to do. And it just piled up and it piled up. And I ended up sleeping in my car with my dog for a long time while still working 2 jobs. So this is not a government handout. Medicaid is not just something that the government hands to people that are lazy and don't want to get jobs. I went through all the steps. I went to college, I worked a job, I worked 2 jobs and still ended up sleeping in my car. And it wasn't until I was qualified to receive Medicaid that I could have the roof over my head that I have right now. So if we're going to be talking about making changes to Medicaid, we should be talking about expansion, like the governor said, not cuts. Our communities need more care, not less. And I know from personal experience, it takes one thing beyond our control to cause a person to need these types of programs.
Oh, but no, right? No, we can't do that in America. Why? Why? We can't do that because Daniel Loeb, who has $3.2 billion, wants more. That's why. These are incredibly selfish people, and they are hoarders, and they have a mental illness and some kind of arrogance that they believe life hasn't given them so many benefits. There is no way, if you use logic, to believe that a few people can have so much and then they believe the system is working, or that everybody, if they work just as hard as them, could have that. That's impossible, right? You can't say there are, 10 extremely wealthy families, let's say, and that if only all these other families, these hundreds of millions of other families worked hard, they could be those three. No. If you're going to have concentrations of wealth and huge disparities of wealth, and you want to be at the top of that pyramid, that is selfish, and it's a lie to suggest that others could achieve what you're achieving. Even if you did it entirely legally, which is rarely the case, even so, if you are supporting a system that depends upon depriving people of medical care so that they have to live in their car, I have friends, and I'm seeing it in the chat on this show, who will suffer if this bill goes through. How dare these billionaires consider themselves patriots or Americans? Now, let's pivot from the bad bill. Also happening, the big issues also happening that are disturbing us is what's happening with the attack on immigrants in America. And the fact the data is now showing that, there are the promise that we would get that the policy would be to first focus on violent criminals, people who engage in sexual assault and other violence. Well, there has been very little effort to remove those people from the country. These are folks who may be serving jail times in actual prisons, or who are awaiting sentencing, or maybe who are just out on the streets and have been charged. Those people are not the people they're going after. Instead, I want to share this with you. We have, and you already know this, ordinary people who are raising families. Maybe they have green cards. Maybe they are in the process of becoming Americans. Maybe they're here on some kind of protected status. This is about to be ripped away from them. You've heard about nannies being kidnapped from parks, children being kidnapped from foster homes. This is really happening. These are giant and massively overcrowding. There is not the capacity to hold people. And then there's also the Supreme Court allowing for the deportation of people to countries, not even from which they came, without a hearing. So let's highlight a typical example of who is being deported. This is a Purple Heart veteran. I want to share this with you right now.
Purple Heart veteran from Hawaii was deported this morning as part of President Trump's immigration crackdown.
Annalisa Burgos shares his story.
An emotional day for Sejun Park. After 48 years in the United States, the decorated Army veteran deported himself to South Korea. Some final hugs with his kids, parents, aunts, and friends, not knowing when he'll see them again. We caught up with Park before his flight.
This really kills me that I just have to drop everything and leave like this. They're being so supportive. They're all worried about me. They're like letting me know, oh, you'll be okay in Korea. I know I'll be okay. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about them.
Park moved to the U.S. when he was 7 and had legal permanent residency under a green card. At 19, he joined the Army and fought in Panama during the Noriega War in 1989. He was awarded a Purple Heart for his bravery.
I got shot in the spine with an AK-47, M16, my left lower back. So in my mind, I'm going, oh my God, I'm shot in the back. I can't feel my legs. I must be paralyzed.
Miraculously, his dog tag deflected the bullet aimed for his spine, saving his life. Park returned to his then home in Los Angeles, where he suffered from severe PTSD. He turned to marijuana to cope and moved to Hawaii in 1995 for a better lifestyle. But he became addicted to crack cocaine and struggled for years to get clean.
Drugs had a big control throughout my life, and that's what eventually got me into trouble with the law and everything.
In 2009, he was convicted for drug and bail offenses and served 2.5 years in prison. When he was released, ICE agents detained him and revoked his green card. He fought deportation in court and as a Purple Heart veteran was allowed to stay in the U.S. under deferred action as long as he checked in each year and stayed clean and sober. Park turned his life around. He became a loving father to his 2 children and cares for his aging parents.
These last 14 years have been great. Like, I'm really proud of myself, proud of my kids, how I've been acting and how I've been living my life.
But this month, officials told him he had to leave the country or be detained and forcibly deported.
I took 2 bullets for this country. Like, you're more American than most of the Americans living in America.
He was given an ankle monitor.
3 weeks to say goodbye to everybody.
To
End your life here.
Everything, yeah. Let's say she gets married, I won't be there. Like, say my parents pass away, I won't be there. Like so many things that I'll be missing. And for sure, things are gonna happen. I just can't be there, which is heartbreaking.
We have a veteran like Mr. Park who took a bullet for this country, who fought and swore an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, even though he wasn't a citizen of it.
Park's attorney says 38% of the U.S. military are non-citizens and believes thousands are being deported for non-violent crimes.
I'm very choked up right now. I'm very choked up right now because not only did this man serve this country, but he, of course, suffered from PTSD, and he turned his life around, and he means so much, not just to his family, but to you and I just watching this. And he admits he'll be okay in South Korea, but that is not the point. His children are here. He'll miss his daughter's wedding, and we think he'll be okay, but will he? The strain on him, the cruelty here. And let me just say what makes me all the more furious is the double standard, the utter double standard, right? This guy had been given this deferred action to stay here. And now Donald Trump thinks this guy should go. I want to share with you Representative Jasmine Crockett yesterday at a hearing on immigration, what she had to say about Melania. And she's been talking about this, or this has been going viral, and this is outrageous. I'm not suggesting Melania Trump be deported, but I am showing you how this is working, how these policies are working in furtherance of a white supremacist goal. Let me play this.
And since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the first lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here.
The math ain't mathing here. Melania Trump is no Einstein. That is a fact. And she did not meet the standards for an Einstein visa. Okay, but she is now a citizen, apparently. I don't know when she was naturalized, but I'm sure she would probably love to be deported so she doesn't have to see her husband. That's not the point. The point is what we're doing is cruel and stupid, and I believe unlawful, because I believe we are unconstitutionally targeting people. And it also doesn't fulfill the values. I mean, sometimes I get into this isn't lawful and so on because I have that legal mentality, but this is cruel. It doesn't support American values, and it sends a message that people should not fight for this country. And this man made the ultimate sacrifice. He nearly died or was paralyzed. He suffered from PTSD. And then we have him being deported, and Melania Trump, who was essentially a nude model. No offense to nude models, but that's what she was. Comes to the U.S., meets Donald Trump, and when he was just a wealthy guy, she was able to get that special visa. Don't love it. Okay, one last thing before we get to Crazy Town. Yesterday, there was a Senate Judiciary Committee meeting where Emil Bovy, who is one of Donald Trump's lawyers, who right now in the Justice Department is up for a appellate court appointment, and he should not become an appellate court judge. I think it's the Third Circuit that he is up for. And during this hearing, he was confronted by many senators on the committee, and I'm going to share with you Adam Schiff and Dick Durbin confronting him, because just the other day, a whistleblower report came out indicating, giving the backstory behind some of the actions that looked very questionable that took place under his watch. So the two in particular that they focused on at this hearing and confronted him on is that Bove was the man behind pressuring prosecutors to drop the charges against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, the federal corruption charges. That's what was in the whistleblower report. So Schiff confronts him on that, or the senators confront him on that. And the second thing in the whistleblower report that is so important is that Emil Bove was also behind the scenes. You might remember this context. He was also behind the scenes in a very, very important case. That was when this past spring, when Judge Boasberg, federal judge in D.C., during an emergency hearing said, you cannot take prisoners who are in Texas, and you can't take them and put them on planes and send them to El Salvador, right? And because the lawyers came in to try to, at an emergency hearing over the weekend, to stop this, on Monday there's a hearing, and the judge makes clear, no, you can't do this while the hearing is going on. The planes take off and fly anyway. And the whole game that the Trump administration tried to play was, it doesn't matter if the court, while speaking in court, ordered, do not send anybody. If there's a plane, turn it around. They said, doesn't matter. We didn't need to do that until the order was actually in writing, right? There's a separate issue about whether this judge has jurisdiction. But the real issue is, did the Justice Department, at the time they were given the order, violate the law, right? Because the lawyers are asking for a contempt hearing, or there is a contempt hearing over the Department of Justice for sending planes to El Salvador, even after the judge said, do not do it. It was a live order, enforceable at the time. So the background is here that apparently Bove, according to the whistleblower report, said, and I'm sorry, guys, I can't use the F-bomb anymore, but I'm going to say F because I'm trying to clean up my act, that he said F them, like F you to the judge. We don't care what it says. We're still sending those planes. So I'm going to share with you the confrontation here. Here is Adam Schiff confronting Bove.
The hearing started with the chairman reading a social media post by the Deputy Attorney General Blanche, who is present today but not under oath, nor is that social media post under oath. So let me ask you, since you are under oath, in the complaint it says, Bove stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignoring any such court order. Did you say anything of that kind in the meeting?
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. To the extent I
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Bove?
hold on, guys. I want you to, here's Bovey. And I'm trying, and again, I'm not being ageist. I'm just pointing out that this man is, just by comparison, 15 years younger than me. Being an evil guy has given him an evil face. Let's continue.
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Beauvais, if you said or suggested during a meeting with Justice Department lawyers that maybe they should consider telling the court, fuck you? It seems to me that would be something you'd remember, unless that's the kind of thing you say frequently.
Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take in defense of our clients.
And have you frequently suggested that they say fuck you and ignore court orders? Is that also something you frequently do, such you might not remember doing it on this occasion?
No, and as I explained, I have never directed.
So did you or did you not make those comments during that meeting?
Which comments, Senator?
You really need me to repeat it? Did you suggest, as Mr. Ruveni wrote, that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts fuck you and ignore any such court order?
I did not suggest that there would be any need to consider ignoring court orders. At the point of that meeting, there were no court orders to discuss.
Well, did you suggest telling the courts fuck you in any manner?
I don't recall.
Okay. I don't recall is the safe answer, because other people recall it was in the whistleblower report. Now there's more. One more. This is from Richard Durbin.
With the New York City Mayor Eric Adams. You read about it. We've all heard the quotes. He wanted to drop the prosecution of Mayor Adams in exchange for Adams' promise to cooperate with President Trump's immigration policies. In response, several professional prosecutors resigned, including the U.S. Attorney herself, a staunch conservative who clerked for Justice Scalia and was appointed by President Trump. She resigned over Mr. Beauvais' suggested deal. The lead prosecutor in the Adams case also resigned. Hagen Scotton, who earned 2 Bronze Stars in Iraq, clerk for Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh, wrote to Mr. Beauvais, and I quote, "I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool, enough of a coward to file your motion, but it was never going to be me." And according to a whistleblower complaint the committee received yesterday, Mr. Beauvais has suggested that the Justice Department might need to say F you to federal courts and ignore federal court orders with which this administration disagrees. Ladies and gentlemen, this gets to the heart of our democracy and the rule of law. As Senator Kennedy of Louisiana has rightly reminded previous nominees, and I quote, "Don't ever, ever take the position that you're not going to follow an order of the federal court, ever," end of quote. These serious allegations against Mr. Beauvais came not from the ACLU, but from a career Justice Department lawyer who was promoted by the Trump administration and is best known for defending the first Trump administration's immigration policies in court. He has now put his reputation on the line to inform this committee on the judiciary of what Mr. Beauvais' wrongdoing was.
So that was Durbin. You might wonder, why is he talking so much? Why did he get to speak so long? It's because he is the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, so he gets to make opening remarks like that, as well as closing, similar to that if he chooses. Okay, so you get the picture. I don't want to see a single Democrat vote for Beauvais. Of course, he won't withdraw his nomination. That ship sailed when Brett Kavanaugh failed to withdraw his nomination. But again, not a single Democrat should vote for him. And I'm hoping some Republicans actually find a spine and vote no on his nomination. Now, my friends, it is time for Crazy Town. If you thought that it wasn't crazy enough, let's I'll tell you what it is, and then we get the music. It's going to be Pete Hegseth, who this morning was required to give a press conference about the apparently successful, complete obliteration of the targets in Iran, even though that is not true at all. Donald Trump is feeling very, very insecure. And let me add one more thing about Donald Trump before I play our crazy town music. He is off his rocker more than usual. He is now upset that Bibi Netanyahu has corruption charges against him, which have been hanging over his head for years, and he wants him to be pardoned. And he ranted on and on about that. He also wants Natasha Bertrand, the reporter from CNN, to be fired. He's got a very messy, confused mind. And finally, yesterday in the Netherlands, and I heard this on Lawrence O'Donnell's show last night, Donald Trump at one point said that the efforts were 100% successful and that Iran was going to abandon its nuclear program forever. And then he said, no, they'll be back at it. Within the same conversation, same evening, said completely opposite things. So maybe that's why he sent Hegseth in this morning for a cleanup. I'm going to share that with you now for Crazy Town. This is all so crazy. Let me see. Okay. I've got two clips for you from Hegseth. Let's play the first one.
Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history.
The most complex and secret operation in history. Okay. Do go on, Mr. Hegseth.
I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours. Has MSNBC done that story?
Hold on. This is where he's complaining the press is only talking about stuff that matters instead of what he has to suggest.
How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times? So that American people understand how about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35, or what it's like to man a Patriot battery, or how hard it is to refuel midair, giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible.
Oh, come on. How difficult it is. So, right. So when the press reports about a Supreme Court decision, why don't they talk about how many hours and how many cups of coffee the law clerks expended to write the decision, or how difficult it was to study for the bar exam? Dude, that's not news. And maybe it's news to you because you have never held down a job where you weren't either drunk, not there, or embezzling. I don't know, Pete. Figure it out. Guys, I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.